Harvard to stay silent on issues that don't impact universities' core function, right? Universities' core function. Okay, so when we hear a story like this with Harvard, for the longest time, many of us, when we think about Harvard, we think Oxford, it's the pinnacle, right? Cream of the crop where you go to, where you put that thing on the wall and you brag about it. This story is a CNN story. Harvard University announced it will no longer weigh in on public matters that don't impact the Ivy League school's core function, following a working group's conclusion that Harvard must defend the university's autonomy and academic freedom when threatened, but should not issue statements on matters that do not directly affect the university's core function. The working group's report warned that the integrity and credibility of the institution are compromised when the university speaks officials on matters outside its institutional area of expertise. This decision comes after former President Claudine Gay stepped down and controversy and plagiarism allegations arise. Thoughts on this story?
Well, it says unless it affects the university's core function. What is the core function of Harvard University at this point? Nobody really knows.
It's a hedge fund with classrooms.
100% correct. You mentioned that I graduated from Harvard. It's true. But what you missed is that about 4 years ago, live on Fox and Friends, I brought my Harvard degree on set, and I tore it open.
No way.
Pulled it out, and wrote Return to Sender on it.
Nice.
Crossed out Harvard University and wrote Critical Theory University, and I mailed it back to him.
Are you kidding me?
100%, live on the air.
Holy, is this clip up there, Rob?
It's out there somewhere, because I refuse to be associated with that institution any longer. Because we can't be holding up the lunacy of places like that as the height of excellence of what we want for our kids when it's poisoning the minds of. And you know what the moment was that broke it for me? There could have been any number of them. And at this moment is the way they treated Jewish students, which is
that's the one.
There it is, right there.
Nice.
It was the moment they announced. Remember, Harvard University was founded to train ministers. That's what it was originally founded to do. When they announced their new chaplain for the university was an atheist. I thought, you know what? You don't really know what your core function is here, do you? I'm done. I'm done being associated. And I think we have to. These universities are gone. This is a lie from Harvard. Of course, they'll weigh in on everything they think is follows their progressive ideology. They just got caught when it came to Jewish students in Israel with extreme bias.
Let me ask you this. Like, sometimes, what's the one movie? Untouchables, right? Like, you can't do nothing to them. Oh, we're untouchable. Or, certain people reach saint status. There's nothing you can do about them. They're saint status. How consequential could this be to Harvard with the types of decisions they've made? Obviously, the last 8 months, we're talking since October 7th, but also during COVID, the last 4 years, when they said, yeah, you know what? Even though your kids are not going to be staying on campus, you still have to pay the full price. While their money accounts getting bigger and bigger and bigger, how consequential could this be for Harvard?
It could be. I hope it's massively consequential. They've seen application numbers drop, so families are deciding, okay, it isn't the pinnacle to try to go to Harvard. I also think businesses, and you know this better than I do, they see the types of students they're getting, law firms, the type of lawyers they're getting, and they're not getting constitutional scholars, they're getting activists. And they said, you're actually creating more problems inside my corporate culture and my business than you are adding value to it, because you decide to come in and spew your DEI nonsense to me and your grievance matrix. So it takes a while. I think abandoning these institutions, letting them become just woke cesspools is fine. They are what they are. We just have to create our own institutions that actually have the right core function.
Tom, what do you think? Rob, I'm going to send you this thing here because Ken Griffin, we all know who Ken Griffin is. I think he's a 20 or $40 billion guy. He's got money. So if you guys are thinking about starting a GoFundMe, he's going to be okay. So this guy, who, according to Forbes, just last April, we're talking a year ago, he didn't give $1 million to Harvard. He didn't give $10 million to Harvard. He didn't give $20 million to Harvard. Rob, if you can pull up the story. This is how much money Ken Griffin, billionaire, gave to Harvard last year. Go lower. You'll see, I think it's the third or fourth paragraph. Well, you see a number if you zoom in right there. Last one. Griffin, the founder and CEO of Citadel, has donated generously to his alma mater since he graduated in 1989, including a $300 million gift last April to the Faculty of Arts and Sciences and a $100 million gift in 2014. Vinny, that's $450 on 2 donations. And he's saying, I'm out.
Done.
I'm out. Tom, how consequential? As somebody that's from academia yourself, what do you think is going to happen here?
Well, first of all, when I read this, I mean, this
When I
whole...
say academia, I just want to pay the respect.
yeah, you have
because
to
some
move
of us
the
are-
Thank you very
castle.
much. Thank you very much. Basically, this announcement just reeks. This is PR stunt. When I finished reading this, all I could smell was horse shit. And I said, man, there's a pony in here somewhere. You just have to find it. And so here's what the pony is. The pony is they were embarrassed on Capitol Hill when Claudine Gay and the president of MIT and the president of Penn all could not answer questions with a simple answer. Will you protect Jewish students that are being persecuted and feel physically, insecure about safety? Will you do something about that? And they couldn't say yes, they would do about it. And they were embarrassed on Capitol Hill. And then the changes made in leadership. Then, add insult to injury, they allowed protests to become encampments, and then encampments to be to allowed to negotiate with the school. First of all, you're breaking the law. Second of all, you're breaking university policy, and you're doing all this. And then the universities negotiated with them. Later, University of Alabama was like, get the hell out of here. Your permit's over. You've had your protest. You've had your demonstration, freedom of speech. You've done your piece. Now go home, damn it. It's done. And so what has happened here is Harvard was cornered, and Harvard had to do something. And so what are they doing? They went away navel-gazing and thinking, and they came back and they said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to announce publicly that we're not going to announce publicly an official university position. And that was the one that was in the press release and was in the words on the president's lips, which was officially comment on the official position of the university. So they're stuck in a corner, PBD, and all they can do is make this little announcement that says, if it doesn't have to do with the core function of the university, which is not education, I said it before, which is running a hedge fund of which less than 12% of the revenue per year is actually tuition. If it's not talking about the official mission and function of the university, we're not going to comment on these things. Well, I'd like to know when they not comment when another group comes and protests in the student square and says, we're not leaving unless you negotiate with us. And when it's time to not comment, I'd like to know what Harvard's going to do. But they're really stuck. And like most of academia is stuck. And by the way, most of the Ivy Leagues started as seminaries, by the way. Oh, the Ivy League, most of them were seminaries, and they were centers of early Americana.
What a shame.
And
what a shame to go from that to where you are today.
Exactly.
What a shame for that to be taking place.
I have a question for Pete. Because it's funny, when PBD did the intro, and he's like, you went to Harvard, you literally rolled your eyes. Like, I didn't, you might have been like proud about it, because typically an alma mater, the whole premise is that you have pride in where you went to school. And there you are rolling your eyes. I think Harvard is number one, by the way, when it comes to endowments, $50 billion. You said that's a hedge fund that basically teaches classes. When you said who is the number one client of a university, we're thinking, well, it's the kids, well, it's the parents. It's actually the donors, the mega donors, the Ken Griffins of the world, or the Bill Ackmans of the world, who have all been disgusted what's going on out here. But the motto of Harvard is Veritas, the truth. So I want you to be a little truth teller here. What would it take for you to give money to Harvard again? Or possibly, if your kids got accepted to Harvard, would you be encouraging your kids to go to Harvard? What would you do?
Absolutely not.
Really?
Absolutely not. I've got a list. It's about 5 schools long of schools that I, as a father, would be willing to spend my own money if they would like to attend.
Are you comfortable sharing those?
Because a few of them. Liberty University, College of the Ozarks. It's now in Missouri. I love New St. Andrews College. It's in Idaho. That's a few of them. There's a few more. Yeah. I've got it on my iPhone. Everywhere I go on different events, people say, well, what about this school? Have you looked at
University of Florida, maybe?
Nope.
Really?
University of Tennessee? Nope. All the major state schools have the same undercurrent. See, we talk about Harvard, we talk about Yale, we talk about Princeton, because they're the worst. They just play it out front. Right. Critical race theory is everywhere. If you go to Harvard's website, every department defines itself through the lens of critical race theory. That's why I wrote Critical Theory. They're just open about it. The pedagogy, the philosophy of education these days is ubiquitous across all of higher ed. I mean, you know where the Marxists landed when they came over? The book I wrote before this one was Battle for the American Mind, about the K through 12 takeover, the left-wing takeover of K through 12 education. It took them 100 years. And they did it in large part by seating themselves in higher ed. Where did they first land, the Marxists from the Frankfurt School? At Columbia University. What is Columbia University? What was it then? What is it today? the #1 teachers college in America. And what did they come with? A theory called critical theory. Now, Marxists usually use class as the dividing factor. Class didn't work in America because of capitalism.
Yep.
So what did they use instead? They used race, which was our Achilles heel. So the teachers college proliferated that everywhere. So people say, well, my kids are safe in Alabama or Florida or Tennessee. Maybe, definitely the culture is better, but the philosophy is still the same. I mean, you look at something like who here took social studies? Social studies.
Yeah, back in the day.
Social
Yeah, of
studies?
course.
Well,
Totally made up. It's a made up subject. It's not a real subject. Made up by progressives because they wanted to get rid of literature and theology and philosophy and history and politics as individual disciplines meant to seek truth. Veritas. Back to the when what's on the crest of Harvard? The Old Testament, the New Testament, and the Testament to come, meaning Christ's return. That's what's on the shield. It was seeking actual truth. They've dissected all of that. So even schools that look more conservative.
Wait, let me get this straight. What you just said. Is that still on their crest?
It is still on their crest.
Pull that up, Rob.
racist, isn't it racist?
No, but wait a minute. Do they even explain that like in orientation or no?
Of course not.
No.
Absolutely not.
Wait, can you pull this up, Rob?
Harvard crest.
Can you pull this up? So pull up the Harvard crest on what he was explaining and actually go up. What does Harvard's crest mean? I want to know. Did you guys know this? How many of you guys know?
I knew about Veritas. I didn't know about the Old Testament and the New
Zoom in a
Testament.
little bit.
Yeah, look at the
Interesting.
crest when you actually look at the shield.
Harvard's code.
Now as they've moved on to their law
Go
school,
to
their business
images,
school.
Rob. You'll see it.
In the foreground, the 3 open.
Yep, the 3 open books, so they don't even say what
we
the
know what
open
it
books
is.
are, but that's exactly
Wow. How do you go from that to? So let me ask you: if you have, so
Look at the 3 books.
That's what the 3 books
There
are
it
meant
is.
to represent.
So here's what's crazy. So yesterday, we're upgrading and doing all this stuff with our estate planning. Tom, we're having these meetings. We've been having these meetings for the last couple of years. But a couple of weeks ago, I'm at an event where I'm listening to everybody talk about estate planning with their kids, how they set it up, G4, G5. This is how many, the Crest family, the Walsh family, the Reinsdorf family. You're kind of learning about all these guys, how they do it. Can they not put in their constitution that whoever becomes the president of Harvard has to be somebody that's committed to these 3 things? Wouldn't that just make sense? So who is the founder of Harvard, Pete? Do you know who founded?
Well, I mean, it was named after John Harvard. I don't know who actually founded it, but it was 1670
Harvard University in 1636 by the Great and General Court of Massachusetts Bay Colony, great name, and named after John Harvard, its first benefactor.
So its first donor.
Yeah.
And what's John Harvard known for?
I couldn't tell you.
Can you zoom it in? No, I'm actually now curious. Can you go in right now? Let's just see it here. Go below, Rob. No, right there, the history of Harvard University. Oh, they're not going to tell Okay, so Harvard was an English, zoom in a little
Puritan.
bit.
Yep.
Puritan clergyman and New England colonist who was born in New England, London, 1607, died in Charleston, Massachusetts, 1638. 1627, his mother and stepfather sent him to Emmanuel College, Cambridge, where he graduated in 1631. Earned his master's degree in 1635. 1637, Harvard moved to Massachusetts Bay Colony, manages tuberculosis, and died from consumption the following year. Before his death, he left the college half of his estate, which was worth $1,700. It's a lot of money in 1600. And, no, it literally is. And his library of around 400 volumes. The school was officially named Harvard College in his honor in 1639. Wow. And you go this far from this?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That is insane to me.
And you have to remember the risks they took. What year was this? This is 60 years before 1776. So this is a young country emerging, PBD.
Where do you see 60 years? This is...
No, he's saying from there to the 1700s.
Officially, 1636?
That's 140 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100.
Tom, don't worry about it. It's only 100 years you missed.
140 years.
Don't worry
Yeah.
about it, dude.
It's a long time.
140 years later, they're taking a risk under the British shadow about what they're teaching and what they're doing. Because a lot of what they were teaching, what they were doing, was the independence and the growth of America.
Well, the elephant in the room here is he's a white Christian male, and that's in the 1600s, whatever it is, sailing across the ocean blue, Christopher Columbus vibes, founding the school, being the first benefactor. Fast forward 2024, DEI, Marxism, run amok, intersectionality, decolonialization, oppressor, oppress. It just shows like the guy that started the school wouldn't actually necessarily be even welcome in the school anymore.
He
at
would
this
tear
point.
up his own diploma.
Yeah.
It ultimately becomes a rejection of God and a rejection of Western civilization. And once you reject God, then you open Pandora's box for anything to replace it. And that's how you lose your culture. You know this. Culture protection is really important, and you have to be massively intentional about what your mission is, who you allow to lead it, who you let in, who your employees are. And the minute, it's just like anything, the minute you let DEI sort of creep in or any aspect like that creep in, it takes over. And Harvard is one of the worst examples.
He's so right. By the way, a few years ago, one of the investors comes up to us, and one of the guys we were meeting with, this is the whole DEI thing, where it wasn't kind of big. This is like 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I don't know what it was.
Wasn't even a thing.
Tom, you would remember this. No, it wasn't like ESG, DEI.
No.
Nobody was really talking about it. And one of the guys says, well, yeah, you know what we value when we make the investments, and we want to know what the DEI scores. I'm like, what the hell is DEI? Well, DEI is diversity. I'm like, we're probably the most DEI company out there. So he's like,
PHP
really?
you're talking
Yeah,
about.
I'm like,
It's
without
ridiculous.
even trying,
Yes,
it's like, what
exactly.
are you talking about? Like, we got Hispanics, we got blacks, we got whites, we got Asians, we got Muslims, it doesn't matter. We all get along, whatever it is. You've been to the
You
conference.
really
It
are
makes no
DEI.
sense. So then, just to put it to him, I said, just so you know, whatever you think you're DEI, we're like true
20-fold.
DEI without trying to be DEI.
Exactly.
And we got the report and we sent it to him, and some people are like, well, PHP is a DEI company. And all. We did that because one of the investors wanted to know this. But here's the part. This guy right here, I saw this clip this morning. I showed it to Jen. And I don't know if you've heard about this book that's come out. Every parent and teacher, schools, they're all reading and talking about it. The Anxious Generation, how the great rewiring of childhood is causing an epidemic of mental illness. Now, this guy is interviewing the author. He's asking him, who raises better kids? And then he asks him a question at the end. I love how honest the author is. Bob, if you can play this clip, go for it.
Who makes for better parents, left-wingers or right-wingers?
Right-wingers. There's a lot of data
Can you
on
move
this.
that mouse?
Move the mouse, Rob.
There's long been a slight gap where conservatives are a little happier than liberals, and it's not clear why. Is that parenting? Who knows? But what I found in doing the research for the book is that the gap between left and right became a chasm after 2012. So we'll get to the reasons why that is. But the bottom line is when kids are rooted in communities, they don't get washed out to sea by the phone-based childhood, by living by the virtual world. So over and over again, whether we look at left, right, whether we look at religion, what we find is that it's the secular kids and the liberal kids who got washed out to sea, got really depressed after 2012, and much less effect on the conservative and religious kids because I think they're more rooted.
Now, if parenting is the
Watch this. No, play it.
most important thing, which you seem at many times to believe, why aren't you just a right-winger? Because right-wingers, according to you, get that right.
Watch this.
It would be your community, right? You're talking about community. Embrace that community.
Well, no, because my community is the academic community where almost everyone's on the left. And, I know some conservatives. They're mostly not professors. And I do belong to a synagogue, although I'm an atheist. So, yes, I sort of have one toe in, each of these worlds. But it's not that simple. You don't just say, well, my research shows that this produces better outcomes. Therefore, I will change my values and go to be. No, it doesn't work that way.
By the way,
Who
let
makes
me
for
tell
better
you,
parents?
I'm going to tell you something. I love his answer. I know we're kind of like sitting here saying, if he would have said, yes, I went to Hillsdale, the credibility of statistics would have actually gone lower.
I agree.
The fact that this guy is a liberal, not willing to move, even after finding out the data that families being raised by conservative values raise better kids, but he's not willing to join the team, gives it more argument.
Yes.
So why would Harvard get away from these values and principles that build it into the #1 institution in the world? So wild to me.
And here's my thing. What's the end goal for them? They have this whole system set up. The DEI, Peter, the schools, they're brainwashing. What's their end game for doing this to the children?
This is what we miss, is that I'm not kidding. When you do the research of what happened to academia and now K through 12, every person you meet who's a part of it is an atheist, a communist, or a Marxist.
Wow.
Or so all of them. We're not talking about soft left progressives. The people who sowed the seeds of what we see in our universities today were Marxists. Mm-hmm. They were communists. Yep. They were atheists. They hated America. They hated capitalism. They were angry people, usually ugly people.
Ugly as hell.
And they hated the success and the freedom and actually the code of the West, much of which is a biblical code, which restricted all the perverted things they wanted to be a part of. And so they wanted to assault it. And critical theory is the best example of it. Coming out of an academic institution in Germany, landing here, and it proliferated because it gave a philosophy otherwise Western Christian civilization was grounded in the Bible. It was rooted in Athens and Jerusalem in Latin. It had a history. It had coherence to an understanding of human nature. Well, critical theory gave the left, Marxists, communists, an avenue by which to produce an alternate theory, which is tear it all down. And once it got in, the institutions didn't fight back. And it took over. So the end state of those people, they didn't know exactly what their plot 100 years ago would look like, but they knew what it wouldn't look like. It wouldn't look like 1776, and it wouldn't look like biblical principles, and they were happy with that. And that's exactly what they got at Harvard.
Let me tell you what this is making me think about. Yesterday, Tom, how weird was yesterday? Check this out. Yesterday, I told you we did the estate planning for the family with Tom Executive. They all came in here from Miami. We had a big meeting. You know what we did last night at the Cigar Lounge? You saw us at the Cigar Lounge. We were prepping for tomorrow's debate with Chris Cuomo and Dave Smith. But last night, till 10 o'clock at night, we were at the Cigar Lounge for 3.5 hours. All we did was build the constitution and the culture of Valuetainment and Lion Holding Company to announce to everybody that if you come work for this company, here's who won't do well, here's who will do well, this is what we stand for, this is what we don't stand for, and we're giving it to you, so you're going to say, I don't like this company. I think there's never been a more important time to think 100 years, because you can't be like, well, we got plenty of time. You don't. Every school that let's just say we start a school, university, you have to put who can run this school.
Of course.
Because if a school's being ran by Tom, let's just say Tom's the dean of the school, president of the school, I don't care what happens if my kids are going to that school.
I trust
Meaning, I trust what's going to happen at the top. Teacher screws up, he's going to fire them. And what are you doing here? Because I know what's at the top. It's very important that companies, if a company is being built on a cause, if a school's being built on a cause, the papers, the Bill of Rights, the constitution of that school needs to be written who's going to run it one day. No matter how big of a check they cut you, even if your name is Forbes and you're the great-grandson, the grandson of the founder of Forbes magazine, and you sell it to China for 95%, and 2021 International Woman of the Year is announced as Hillary Clinton from Forbes. Forbes lost its way. So very important to protect it at the beginning. Vol Conference is a conference we do once a year. This is our 5th official Vol Conference. The first one we did was in Dallas. 450 people showed up. This one's going to be 10,000. Last one we had 2,500 people at Palm Beach at the Diplomat, which we had Tom Brady at. Unbelievable event. 3 days, 3.5 days. 200-page manual, entrepreneurship, raising capital, PEs, VCs, executives, salespeople, consulting firms, 180-plus different industries. That was last year. And I told everybody last year, this year was going to be magical because we're doing it in Palm Beach Convention Center. AV is going to be magical. We've invested so much investments on back end for this event that's taking place in Palm Beach. And we have been trying to get together, me and this other guy that you guys probably know. Finally, we agreed to do this. He agreed to do this. He's all over the world. He's got a message he wants to tell you guys being at the Vault Conference. Rob, if you got the clip ready, go ahead and play this clip. Go ahead and play this.
Get out of here, dude.
Wayne "The Rock" Johnson here, man. I am pumped. I got some big news to share with you guys. I cannot wait to join all of you guys down there at the Vault Conference in Palm Beach, September 4th through the 7th. I'm going to be sitting down with your host and my good buddy, Patrick Bet David. We're going to chop it all up from leadership, entrepreneurial spirit, business strategy. We're going to chop up our journeys. We're going to chop up so much more, including all the various industries that we have been lucky and fortunate enough to build enterprise in. So I cannot wait. September 4th through the 7th, it's going to be a historic conference. I cannot wait. I will see you down there, Palm Beach. Back to work for me because the rent is always due.
The most electrifying man on earth will be at the Vault Conference. 3.5 days. And by the way, it's going to be absolutely insanity. We had a conversation over the weekend about the fact that, hey, everybody's been saying, hey, can we one of these days do podcasts together? So the first time we're going to do anything together, we'll be at the event, 90-minute conversation. And some of you guys may even get a chance to meet him, picture. Who knows? Who knows what things? There's going to be a lot of weird announcements we'll be making. Here's all I will tell you. This is not the last year, if you guys remember at the Vault Conference, how many husband and wives attended? It was hundreds of husband and wives. Some people brought their sons, like they were coming as a family, legacy planning. What do I do? Business partners. There's a couple people this year that are planning on bringing 100 people, their entire company, executive team, sales team. So it's going to be wild. Looking forward to it. This is not an event to come by yourself, but make sure you get yourself your spouse, your business partner, your team register to attend the Vault Conference, because I'm telling you right now, when this sells out and you call the consulting firm and they tell you we don't have any more tickets, you cannot be upset, because we're not bringing The Rock back next year. We're only going to do this one time at the Vault Conference, and I hope you get to join us. Get registered. We'll see you guys there.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.